Okay guys, so what I'm going to do now is address a issue with the new vehicle that I bought for a daily. I had to give the CRV that I did daily, an RD1 CRV, to my daughter because she's going to start driving soon and she learned to drive on that, and I just think it would be most comfortable for her to just continue driving that. So I got a 2005 Element. Let me tell you something, these old cars, like the Del Sol, like every other car I have, the headlights always suck. So I went ahead and hit up my boys at AUXITO for some headlights so that I can be able to see a little bit better with the Element. So we're gonna go ahead and install those. I'll show you guys the before and after on that. I can tell you right now though, it's gonna be huge because the headlights on the Element are no good. I can't see anything. And in Missouri, you got deer everywhere. So it's very important that you can see what's coming at you. To be honest, those deer will run right into the side of your car if you're not careful. So it's nice to be able to see ahead. Okay, so just wanted to go over this really quick. I know it's kind of low light in here, but it's kind of confusing if you've never installed LED headlights before. But there's this rubber boot that comes off of the light itself right there. And you'll notice that you can't get the new LED light over the top of that like you can this. This would fit on after you get this on. Well, you can't do that because of the big rear area on this light. So what you're gonna do is this part right here screws and then removes this way, and then you can put this in first, and then this will actually just slide in through this guy like this, and then you can keep your rubber boot to keep the moisture out. Okay, and on the Elements, it has this guy, this little piece that you can take off of that area right there. So then when you're done, you just snap it back on like so. Boom. Now you got that back. This is the light we removed. Alright guys, so as you can see, the AUXITO lights, they make a huge difference. I know that there's a lot of YouTubers now that are sponsored or have discount codes for AUXITO lights, but it helps me a lot if you would go, and if you need LED lights for any of your vehicles, use the discount code that's in the description below and the link, and that will help a lot. Anyway, we got some other things to install on the Element as well, just some maintenance items that, as always, older cars need because people seem to neglect maintenance. So we'll be going through that as well. Today I took off a little time to work on this Element, and it's raining. I didn't think it was supposed to rain until tonight, and I worked tonight at my tattoo shop, so it wasn't a big deal, but it turns out it's raining pretty good out there, and so I'm gonna have to find a way to be able to work on this thing in the rain. Some life things have happened lately that's made it a little difficult to shoot videos, but I'm making it work. I recently purchased my very own house. I've been pretty close to a homeowner for a while now, but now I am the sole owner of a house, which is pretty crazy. I have a house now, a shopping center, a business. It's crazy how life just kind of does things to you, and you know, sometimes in the wake of a lot of negativity, some positivity comes out of that. So, but that's kind of fun. I was kind of at the risk of having to move, and now I don't have to do that, so that's also nice. My Del Sol's been in the garage since I painted it, and I think I'll just move that out so I can do the maintenance items on this particular Element that I need to get done. So one of the things that the Elements have that go bad often is the sway bar end links. And I've had 2 of these things. Both of them have had bad sway bar end links, and they were both right around like 180,000 miles to 200,000 miles. So both of them had the same problems. So what we got here is front and rear sway bar end links. We're gonna go ahead and change these out. I'll show you how it's done. It's not super difficult, but the last time I did this, I had to cut them off because they were rusty and the bolts wouldn't come off. It wasn't a huge deal, but it did add a little bit of time to the install. After you get the obvious first thing off, which is the wheel and tire, then if you look down in here, what you're gonna be replacing is these guys right here. And oftentimes you can't tell that they're bad, but they're bad. But you also wanna check these compliance bushings back here, back there, because they're oftentimes tore, and they're tore on mine as well. So if you can look, you can see that they're tore, so I'll need to get some new ones of those. And then also there's a compliance bushing back there, bushing there that you can check, but we're gonna start off with these sway bar end links because they're likely the culprit of all the noise that you're hearing. Anytime you hit a bump that's kind of on uneven ground, if it makes any noise, that's likely the sway bar end links. Change those out first because they're not very expensive, and if that fixes your issue, you don't have to look any further for the issue, but you definitely want to make sure you change those bushings that are torn. Also, I do want to say, when you're changing this particular item, the sway bar end links, it's best to have the car jacked up completely in the front end, because when you tilt it off, so you have one side on the ground and one side in the air, it actually makes that sway bar have tension on it, and then it's hard to get those end links out once you get them unbolted. But if you lift the whole front end up, there's no tension on those sway bar end links anymore, so you can just pretty much remove them, take them off. As I expected, they are not coming off easily. So what happens is this bolt will spin, leaving this stuck on, because basically you can't get this nut off the bolt and on for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my grinder and just cut this off, and then we should be able to get the new one on that's right there. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys real quick how the right way really to take them off is, if in fact they will turn. So the factory ones have a Allen at the end of it, and then you just take a 14 and put it on the other side and you can be able to get it off. The bottom is actually coming off okay. The top I had to grind off, but either way, I got the top off, and I'll go ahead and spray some paint on that so it doesn't rust. This side, however, both of them came out just fine. I'd still recommend cutting off the old one just so you can get back here a little easier, because you can bend this thing up to get to it. You could also do that if you take the bottom one off first, I suppose, but it's just easier to kind of move everything around when you don't have that little sway bar end link attaching everything together. So now it's pretty self-explanatory. These new ones I got do have grease certs, which I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, it's fine. I can grease the cert, but I would just prefer the other style where it just comes with the grease inside the boot already. Okay, so got both sides in. I don't know if you can see them or not, but here's one side. And I had to kind of jack it up on the other side to get this up a little bit so I could get, you want to make sure you run through these real quick and tighten them down. Mine were all loose, so I tightened those down. And then method of tightening these end links is not my favorite also, but it works. These end links actually have a nut to hold right there so you can turn the inside. I don't love that design, but it works. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten those down, and that's pretty much the front. Okay, so end links are on. You got them down there. Made sure that the grease certs were tight. I'll still have to grease those before I go too far. Now we just have to do the rears. not too bad. Man, thankfully, it stopped raining. Still kind of gloomy, but it's not raining anymore. So I'm gonna do this rear outside where I have a little bit more light for you guys. But I got the wheels off. And just looking at it down here, looks like this side's gonna be pretty straightforward. As long as I don't have to cut anything off like I did on the front, then this side should be pretty easy. So let me do one side and I'll walk you guys through the other side. First side didn't go too bad. The top came out fairly easy. The bottom, I actually had to cut it. But after I got it a little ways, unbolted, the Allen head on the inside stripped out. So I just cut the bolt off. And we're on to the next side. Okay, so same thing happened on this side. It gets about that far, and then the Allen on the inside strips out. Same on the bottom. So we're gonna have to cut both of these off, which it's not a big deal because it's nice that it comes up at least a little ways, because then you can get to the bolt and just snip that off and move on. All right, so I got that off. Had to cut both of those little nuts off, but now I think we're ready to put on the new ones. Okay, so fun fact, ordered these from the same people, and this has the Allens on the ends. So I don't know, you got one style on the front and a different style on the back. Okay, and yeah, just in time for it to start raining again. We got all these in there. Got that guy, and they dropped in pretty easily. And this one, so we just got to put on the tires and wheels, and we're all set on those sway bar end lengths. What we're gonna do now is go for a little drive and see if it fixed the noises. I had a ton of noise. Just anytime you'd hit any unlevel surface or anything, it would make a lot of noise in the suspension. I don't think it's strut, because it still rides pretty good. And the previous element that I had really bad struts, and it would make you sick riding in that thing. And this one doesn't do that. So it just makes noise when you hit unlevel surfaces. So let's go for a test drive, see if it still does that. All right, it shouldn't take very long to see if this fixed it or not, because it was pretty much doing it over any sort of bumps. Even just pulling out of my driveway, which I just did, and there wasn't any noise. So let's hope for the best here. So far I haven't heard anything, which is a good sign. So far, no noise at all. Nothing. Yeah, I'm getting no sound at all coming from the suspension now. So I think that pretty much fixed my issue. Something else that needed to be done with the element is actually the rotors. They're kind of warped whenever I hit the brakes. The steering wheel vibrates, which is never fun. It's got a lot of miles on it. I don't know if the rotors have ever been changed. I'm sure they probably have in 180,000 miles, but we're about to do it again. Convenient. So these came from Amazon. I've used Auto Shack stuff before. It seems to be okay as far as factory replacement stuff goes. Yeah, looks fine. Always a good idea to check the pads when you're doing this stuff, and I'm good on pads. Good, because I don't want to change those anyways. And all we really do is take off this little guy here, which can sometimes be difficult to get off, but we can always drill that out. And then there's two 17mm bolts back here you have to take off, one on the top, one on the bottom, and this whole caliper should come off. And so I have one of these things here that comes out of that, but my Phillips is broken. But I do have a second one. I'm gonna see if it's actually gonna work in here. No, the tip of it's too fat, so we might end up having to drill these out anyways, but we'll see. I'm gonna try to use a regular screwdriver. That never works though. Okay, so as you can imagine, the screwdriver did not work. So I drilled these out, easy enough, with a, looks like a 5/16 drill bit. Seemed to fit about right. And now we're gonna just hammer it from the backside. So I wasn't able to hit this off with the sledgehammer, or at least not really. So I'm going to use the 12 millimeter bolts, holes there that are kind of designed to help you get it off of the hub. Yeah, see, there we go. Now we're loose, I think. Yeah. There we go. If those were changed, it was a long time ago because they were really on there. It's been a few days since we last worked on the Element. I kind of messed up and I ordered the rear rotors instead of the front rotors, so I had to wait for the front rotors. I didn't really need to change the rear rotors, but I think I'm going to do that anyways, just since I have them, and it'll prevent me from having to do them in the future. So, all right, we got the correct ones, I think, this time, or at least we're going to try. There we go. That's more like it. The parts always fit the best if you order the right ones. All right, and they always come with some oil on them, and you want to make sure you get that all off so that they function properly. That's to prevent them from rusting in the box. It always kind of amazes me that these mechanics charge so much for brake stuff, because changing rotors and pads is like one of the easiest things you can do, right next to like changing the oil or something. So to me, it's strange that a brake job is expensive as it is, but I guess they got to make money and bills have to be paid. But literally, once you get this thing on, you just take and put these two 17 millimeter bolts back in. As long as you don't hit the brakes, you can just slide the caliper right back over the top of the brake rotor with no problems. So you tighten those down. Some people want to put their screws back in here. I don't. I just use the wheel to keep the rotor on. I don't feel it necessary to have these in. It's never been a problem for me in the past, and you guys can roast me in the comments section. Okay, so that's the whole front. I got the wheels put back on. Both sides maybe took me, once I had the right parts, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, somewhere in there. Pretty quick. If you guys are intimidated to do rotors, don't be. It's super straightforward. These are actually the tools that I used. A drill, some drill bits. What are these? Looks like a 5/16 first, and then something slightly smaller so you can get the middle of it out. I used this and the 12 with two 12 millimeter bolts to get the rotor off of the hub itself. Just a ratchet, hammer, side cutters for the zip ties that I used to zip tie the rotor up, a 19 to get the wheels off, a 17 to get the nuts off, and a big impact. So you do not need a toolbox full of tools in order to do a brake job. Go get you some brake cleaner to make sure that you get the rotors nice and clean, and then throw them on. Pretty simple. I'm actually going to save the back for a time when I'm going to do the rear brakes, because they're not bad. The front was just vibrating a lot whenever I went to stop. The back isn't doing anything, and honestly I think I have plenty of pad left in order to just kind of ride that out until those are ready to be changed. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Kind of like the CRV, not going to be a whole lot of Element content just because I don't really do a whole lot with Elements either. But maintenance has to be done, and I think that showing maintenance is just as important as the high performance stuff. I hope this helped somebody out along the way. If it did, or if you just liked what you watched, go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe for me. All that stuff helps the channel to grow. I hope to see you guys next time. Keep chasing those builds, and we'll see you.